Well, greetings, Beard Fellows. Enoch here with Beard Fellows, and today I'd like to bring you a tutorial video dealing with how best to consume foods and beverages while possessing facial hair of varying lengths and proportions. But remember, to begin with, since time began, men have had facial hair, and therefore have had to modify the way they eat and drink commensurate with the length and proportion of that facial hair. And so we, as beardsmen or mustachios or otherwise, entering into that fraternity, need to understand that we'll have to do the same to a degree. When we eat and drink, expect to get some of that in your facial hair. How much, however, is something that I believe we have direct control over. And so what I'd like to do in this video is give you first a few foundational tweaks and changes that you can make to really up your game, some power changes in some very basic ways that really do change the entire nature of the beast. And so to begin with, I'll meet you on the dining room table here in just a second. All right, so a few foundational tweaks that you can make that'll really up your game begin with one of the simplest, but I can tell you that this simple change has upped my game dramatically as it relates to keeping fluids out of my mustache, and that is the straw. When I use a straw, I get everything in my mouth, none of it on my mouth. Simple. Milk in. I already have a mustache. I don't need a milk mustache. But just to belabor the point, let me show you what it looks like with a big mustache and an open glass of milk. Oh my goodness. I can't stand it. No fun at all. I don't like having milk on my mustache, especially when it drips on my clothing. So I have to wipe it off, which means I've got junk in my mustache now that is going to stay there. Sometimes it'll get flaky, sometimes it stays and bunches up. Whatever the case is, I have to regroom my mustache, or at least clean my mustache. And I'd rather have less time doing that throughout the day and more time just enjoying my day. So simply use a straw. It really makes sense. In the spirit of using straws, what I have, just my own little modification, next to my kitchen sink is one of these tall water bottles. I've got lightly soapy water inside, and you can see there's already a bunch of straws of varying lengths and diameters that I've been using for the last couple weeks. So when I use a straw, if I can't just rinse it out, if it's something thick like a shake, or if I leave it in the cup for a while and it gets a little bit dry, I'll just drop that into this soapy water along with the rest of the straws, and when this fills up or I run out of my straw supply, easy to shake, agitate, clean the interior of the straws, and simply rinse them out with hot water when you're done and return them to the general population for reuse. So this is a great idea for myself. If you have better ideas, let me know in the comments. So straws, make the change. Trust me, it's fantastic. Even when you go out, almost everywhere you go, restaurants will have straws. Another easy change is to switch from using the big tablespoons for eating your meals throughout the day to teaspoons. Teaspoons are fantastic. Now, they don't look as manly as a big bite, but men typically don't chew enough anyway. We're just chomp, chomp, swallow. We wolf our food down. Remember that this is the first stage of digestion, so the more work you do up here, the less work the rest of your body has to do. And so switching to a teaspoon, in my opinion, it's best to get the skinnier conformities, actually gets more food in your mouth past that curtain, which is your mustache. So not only are you getting less of it in your mustache, but you're also taking smaller bites. Yes, it'll take you longer to eat, but taking more time to eat is in fact very, very beneficial for the body. Smaller bites equals more chewing and more time to eat, which means you're going to absorb more of those nutrients and do your body some good. So I switched to teaspoons some time back and received great success from doing that. Another easy tweak has to do with your morning coffee. So when you take your morning coffee, you'll have the same problem if you use a mug, and I already dipped my mustache in the milk. No need to do it in the coffee. So you take a drink, you dip your mustache in the coffee. That's no fun. Something you can do, it's fine. Or you can switch to something simple like one of these thermos-style closure coffee cups. Very cheap. And they have this lip guard here with this outlet. I like using these because not only does it keep my coffee hotter longer, but I can also grab and go if I find I need to split quickly. Take my coffee with me in the car. So make a switch to something simple like one of these cheap coffee closures. Very, very simple changes. So I'll show you some breakfast foods now and give you some examples of some changes in how to eat various items from breakfast. See you in a moment. All right, let's look at a few breakfast foods and some strategies to tackle them. So first off, bread and butter, toast, or bagel and cream cheese. Whatever the case is, something slimy and sticky on bread. So here's the average way of eating something like this. Most people will take a bite this way. No good, not awesome, dirty, gross, no fun. The simple tweak for that is just turn it over. That's all. When you turn it over, now because the hair on the bottom of the lip in fact goes straight down and isn't raking into it, you'll get far less of it in your facial hair. Remember, some is going to get in there. So as you can see, far less got in my facial hair. And that's it. Another common food item would be cottage cheese. When this gets in your mustache or facial hair in general, it's very frustrating. It rolls up into little balls and is very difficult to get out. Rather frustrating. So here's a simple tweak dealing with cottage cheese. A normal bite of cottage cheese might get on the sides of the mustache once again. But something that you'll want to change in the way that you eat in general when you have a long lip curtain type mustache is instead of opening your mouth saying "ah," when you say "ah," what happens is the sides of the mustache kind of go in and close over the opening of your mouth. But instead, if you say "hey," "hey," it's almost like a smile when you open your mouth. What happens is less closing of the mouth, more kind of opening on the sides. So that's a simple tweak. I know it sounds kind of funny. Instead of saying "ah," say "ah" or "hey" when you open your mouth. You'll get less on your mustache. Trust me, it's true. So when you take a bite, instead of going straight in like this, something that's good to do is after it's in your mouth, turn it so that when you pull it out, it doesn't rake across your mustache like this. Done. And lastly, for the breakfast category, we'll look at cereal. One of the most staple and basic breakfasts pretty much anywhere. So with cereal, the trouble is, especially when you have a long beard like this or longer, you run the risk of dunking your beard in the cereal. This same goes for soup. So something that I did myself and sort of just found it out by proxy is that when you're taking a bite, just simply hold your beard. Put your hand over your beard when you take a bite. That way your beard stays out of the way when you eat. It stays out of your cereal. I'll give you an example. As I'm using my bowl to catch any spillback, oftentimes my beard will dunk right in the bowl itself. Many of you out there with longer beards can relate. So what I've done, very simply, is hold the beard back, and when I take a bite, good to go. Okay, so for breakfast we've covered milk and coffee. We've covered bread and butter / toast / bagel and cream cheese. We've covered cottage cheese, and same goes for yogurt and other thick items, as well as cereals and otherwise. You can use the same tips, tricks, and strategies for oatmeal and other things, even for your breakfasts like eggs and other combinations. So let's move on to lunch. As far as lunch goes, one of the most common items, I'd say, is your typical lunch meat sandwich. So you have your lunch meat, your mayonnaise or whatever spread you use, maybe tomatoes, and maybe some lettuce or spinach or otherwise. So what I'll do is show you how I go about tackling a simple sandwich like this with that gooey stuff coming out the sides, which always ends up on the sides of your mustache. So there are a couple ways to eat a sandwich, but I would offer probably the smartest thing to do isn't to eat it whole. When you do, you end up oftentimes eating more of your mustache than the sandwich. How many of you have experienced that, where the sides of your mustache get sucked into your mouth and you're pulling your mustache out with your pinky, or you're flossing your teeth with mustache hairs? That is painful and not fun. So what I typically do is cut my sandwich like Mom used to when I was a kid. I'll make a triangle. So I'll cut down the sides, make a triangle, cut, and then I have the opportunity to change the way that I tackle this sandwich. As you can see, all of that stuff typically ends up on the sides of your mustache. And so stay tuned for how to eat this thing. Now with the sandwich, there are a couple ways of eating it after you've cut it in that triangle shape. A lot of people will just turn their sandwich sideways like this, really kind of horizontally, and begin eating, and that's just fine. The problem that I find with that is that you have on both sides the ability for that junk to come out into the sides of your mustache. And I would offer that when you're wiping your mustache, it's a lot more difficult to get food out of the sides than it is the middle. The middle is, in fact, for me, the easiest place to simply get food out of, including on the soul patch area. So what I do, instead of holding it this way, I'll turn it up this way. So you can see that the top and bottom are the areas that would get the most junk. So here's how we take a bite my way. I'll just turn it this way, take a bite like that. Now if I have a little bit here, it's rather easy to wipe off, and it's that simple. Another nifty trick with eating a sandwich is just to simply pull your mustache over when you take a bite. When you're at home. It'll maybe look a little bit weird when you're out, but here's how that looks. Normally, if I'm holding my sandwich sideways, like most tend to do, and I take a bite, I run the risk of pulling my mustache into my mouth. But if I give myself a nice side entry, I in fact completely eliminate that probability, like this. Very simple. Or, when you're taking a bite, you can do it kind of stealth mode and move it out of the way with your finger, like this. That's something that works better when you're out. Okay, so another lunch staple, at least here in the States, would be peanut butter and jelly. Now you might be using Vegemite or Marmite, depending on where you're from, which I find both to be actually rather tasty. But a gooey sandwich option. I'll present another way, in fact, of cutting a sandwich up. I don't know that you do this in public. I don't have any issues with what people think of me if I cut a sandwich up to eat it. But at home, I'll do whatever I need to just to keep myself cleaner and still be able to eat and not starve. So I'll show you just an interesting way of cutting up a sandwich that actually helps keep you cleaner if it's especially gooey and messy. Okay, so here we are with the PB&J, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the other lunch meat sandwich, remember, I cut it in a triangle, which is still just as effective with PB&J. But here's just another option. You can simply make lengthwise cuts on this sandwich, maybe 4 pieces out of it, and what that will do, in fact, is give you this effect. Each piece being small enough to get a large percentage of it in your mouth with very little touching your actual facial hair. Far less than that ever-widening triangle when you cut it the other way. So this is just another option, and I'll show you what that looks like. So when you cut it into strips, instead of the triangle, you'll get less on your face and you'll have more enter your mouth free and clear of that facial hair, like this. Remember, turn it up so that the top and the bottom are the parts that would get soiled, not the sides of the mustache. because when you wipe, they actually get wiped into the body of your beard. Rather frustrating. You end up having to rake your fingers through and pull a napkin through. Not fun. So take a bite with it up like this, and here we go. Okay, so now that we've finished with sandwich options for lunch, let's move on to dinner items. So for dinner, one very commonly eaten item that in fact is one of the biggest offenders in making our beards and mustaches messy is soup. I absolutely love soup. I love to make soup, I love cooking, and I really love to sample different soups from different cultures. So for our example, I made some green curry, some Thai chicken peanut egg drop soup. It's fantastic. So soup is drippy. That's not good for a beard. You go to take a bite and the bottom is dripping and letting you know that a bite is dangerous. And then what happens inevitably, it drips down the center of the beard, and if you're using beard oils, which helps food to not adhere as easily, it runs right off down onto your clothing, into your lap, onto the chair. Whatever the case is, it just causes distress. It's no fun. You have to then take care of a mess. What if you're out and now you've got curry stains on your shirt? No fun. Unless you have a 4-foot beard to cover it, which I can't wait for, because then that'll simplify my life. But anyway, let me show you how to apply the breakfast cereal method to soup along with the twist. So here's my beard and here's some soup. Let's go ahead and take a bite. If I try to take a bite the normal way, my beard gets in the curry. That's no fun. But if I take a bite the way that I showed you with cereal, it immediately eliminates the hassle of dipping your beard in the soup. Plus, implementing the twist that I showed you with the cottage cheese is also very helpful. Done. No spill. So I hope you've been enjoying so far. Now, for the grand finale dinner food, something very, very commonly eaten here in America and really probably all over the world is spaghetti. Now, spaghetti is fantastic. I've made a very, very basic spaghetti here, just marinara sauce and noodles, just so that I can illustrate the points that I'd like to as far as how to tackle spaghetti and it not win. So let's take a look at some strategies for first preparing this spaghetti to be consumed by one with a large beard or mustache. Here we are with a plate of basic spaghetti. Now, one of the first problems with spaghetti is in fact cooking it with the full noodle length. And you can see these noodles are nice and long. And that is actually terrible. As you know, as you start to suck these noodles into your mouth, like Lady and the Tramp, if you remember that movie, it starts to slap around and spray off all of that funk all over your beard and clothes. No fun. So one of the first things that you should do, in my opinion, is in fact break the spaghetti. You can break it against the counter inside the box. Whatever the case is, break it in half at least before you put it in the boiling water. So regardless, even if you cook it long like this, here's what I do every single plate of spaghetti. I use a scissor technique where I take the knife and cross it over the fork so that they touch, and I create this scissor effect, thus cutting up my spaghetti. So we'll cut the spaghetti up using this scissor effect, and you'll see exactly what that does ultimately with it. Really makes a big difference. Okay, now let's take a look at the difference that that just made. Done. That goes in the mouth very, very easily, as you can see. Just how easily it goes in the mouth, I'll illustrate right now. So here's a bite of spaghetti, as you can see. Very simple and stays on the fork rather well. Instead of hanging down that full length, and this just goes right in with a twist. Very simple. And lastly, you can also, because you've cut the spaghetti up so much, simply use that teaspoon with the twist like I mentioned. As you can see, it's staying on the teaspoon very, very well. You've cut it up so much, it's still the very same food, it's just cut so that you can actually take it into your mouth, not into your beard. Put it in your mouth with a twist. Voila. Well, alright, I hope you found this video beneficial and that you'll implement some of these strategies in your daily routines with your food versus beard issues. So let me know in the comments if you found it helpful, and also please like and subscribe and share these videos and others on the Beard Fellows channel with other facial hair enthusiasts that you know that might benefit from these videos if you have as well. But remember, most importantly, you can't know until you grow. So grow, you know. We'll see you soon.